This is the Advanced Selling Podcast.
I meditate. I like candlelight burn in the Northwest.
The aim of this podcast is to help business sales teams grow their business with modern strategies and philosophies. Now your hosts, Bill Caskey and Bryan Neal.
Bill Caskey and Bryan Neal. Hello, Bryan.
Hello, Bill.
Back at the Advanced Selling Podcast. We are entering the fall season.
We are.
All the new seasons, all the new shows start, and our new season starts today. But I did have an interesting story. My wife had a customer service experience, and I wanted to see if you had any part in writing the training manual that this customer service agent used when he was talking to my wife.
Okay, we'll see.
She called an insurance company that had sent us a note saying, "Hey, your payment is late." And my wife felt that probably what happened is she sent the payment, got the letter, and by the time they got her payment, they'd already sent the letter. So she thought, well, I'll call just to make sure. So she calls this guy up, calls customer service, and says, look, here's the situation, sent the check. It looks like the check and your letter saying I was late might have crossed paths in the mail. Can you check? Just before I send another check, make sure you got it.
Yeah.
So he said, sure, I'll check. No, I haven't received that check. And she says, well, that's weird because I sent it and we've never had that problem before. He says, well, why don't you call the post office? Really? And I thought, that's a brilliant customer service move. Why don't you call the post office? So what would that conversation sound like? Yeah. I was in here about a week ago.
Okay, here's the deal. I know you handle a lot of mail here. It's a little white. It probably looks like this.
Had a window.
Some writing on the front. Yeah, little stamp up in the corner. Have you seen any of that? Or
what kind of stamp was that? Was that one of those memorial stamps?
I lost one piece of mail about 3 weeks ago. Could you take a look and see if anybody's found it? Could you imagine what the post office people do? That's hilarious.
But I'm sure that it was in a training manual, or the words came out and it's like, did I just say that? Yeah.
So sick of hearing about the excuses why the real people are late. He's like, why don't you call the post office, man? He flips out like that flight attendant guy did. He grabbed the beer and went down the escape chute.
All right.
Okay.
Topic today, we're going to be talking about attitude because we're getting a lot of email from our listeners, and we get connected on LinkedIn a lot. And a lot of the people who do ask questions about attitudinal things like how do I get my mind right so that I can make different moves in the sales process and get different results. So we thought we'd devote a whole show to a handful of these, what we'll call attitudes of engagement.
Yeah, that's really good. And this is something that's kind of fresh in my mind. I just actually this morning had a training call with a really good client of mine who came from the podcast, and I know they listen, so they will know who they are because I'm recording this on a Thursday morning, hint. And one of the questions they asked me, we went back and started, they asked a bit of a technical or a tactical leading question, like I'm looking for some language, or you all have some good language about this, and we backed it up and said, let's start with the mentality first.
Okay, good.
It's always a good thing to do if you're struggling or stuck on a situation or just in general and you're looking for strategies or tactics. Always a good idea to check back first with attitudinal things. So I think this is very, very pertinent.
So you have a couple there that you liked, and I've got a couple, so why don't you go ahead and start.
As the author, you know these you've got to memorize because you wrote them, but I picked a couple that I really, really like. But
okay. You're not going to let me
clearly not.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay. And I'm not going to say, and we'll go through a couple of these, and I think we're going to make these available. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to make these available to our iPhone app customers, people who have bought apps. And so if you have an iPhone app, Advanced Selling Podcast, you can go to the download PDF file, and it's there.
Yeah, good. Okay, this one. This one says, attitude of engagement. It says, I am an expert in my business, but I need to present myself that way or they'll continue to see me as a rep, which was the exact subject that came up on my training call this morning.
Okay.
And what we talked about a little bit, if we're reaching out to people, whether it's warm through LinkedIn or through a connection or in a worst case, cold, if we don't carry an air or a mentality of us being consultative or an expert, we can very, very easily fall into a trap of, that person is an IT sales guy. Mm-hmm. And part of that, most of that, I think, starts with how you think about yourself and what you're doing. And I think a lot of people tend to lead into a conversation thinking about a deal or a transaction occurring. And I like to coach our clients to mentally think about going into a deal as a person who is in the business, collaborating or consulting and engaging with other people who are also in a similar type business.
That's good. And sometimes the reason I wrote that one down the way I did is sometimes we do have our perception of the fact that we're an expert, but we don't present ourselves that way. We don't have anything tangible to show them to say, this is my thinking around a certain topic, or this is insight that I've gained over the years, or this is some kind of collaboration that we've done. So it's not just a matter of, are you an expert? I'm going to assume if you've been in business for 5 to 10 years and selling what you sell that you are an expert, but it's how do you package that and present it that's for a lot of salespeople is very difficult.
Yeah, and it's very interesting too, because some of the people that I work with, they know more about their industry and their business than a lot of their prospects do. Yet when they show up, it doesn't come across that way. And that starts with the mentality. And I think that they've got to realize that, holy cow, I do know a lot about this business, and I am really smart, and I do have some good ideas. They also have different perspectives. I think sometimes our friend Chris Stark has a little saying that you're judged more by the questions that you ask than by the answers that you give. And showing up with that mentality that I'm going to be an inquisitive question asker will also start to create an environment where they see you that way. Like, oh, you asked some really good questions of me. That's a good thing for a prospect to say. And comes back to this mentality.
You know, if you're in a business where there's a lot of activity going on and a lot of change and technology, you might consider, even instead of you feeling like you have to write some kind of thesis or essay or white paper, you can also consider, I've got one client who just takes some notes from the industry and sort of a industry highlight monthly piece that he does, and it's just one page, and it just talks about different trends in the industry, different things that are happening, some websites he attributes these things to, and it's really just a one-page overview that he is not writing all the stuff behind it. All he's doing is collating it and putting it in a piece of paper that they can actually look at. So he takes those out on calls and says, here's my sort of little newsletter for the month of May, and it allows that person to see his picture attached to content.
Yeah, very, very good. Yeah. So he's got to think of himself that way first. That's the attitude part.
That's the attitude part, right.
Okay, good. You got one of these?
No, go ahead. You go ahead for the second one, then we'll just talk about them.
Okay, yeah. Next one. This one, attitude of engagement. I'm not a fit for every prospect on the planet, nor are they a fit for me. The process is one of sorting, not selling. That's quotable. That's B. Caskey quoted that right there.
Actually, I got that from Mike Siggers. Mike Siggers. Oh, yeah. Well, he always talks about sorting, and I really like that because we can easily get trapped into how do I make everyone a fit versus how do I sort out those who will never be a fit and keep in my funnel those who I can at least groom to be a fit.
Yeah, and again, we're talking attitude or mentality. So every day when I wake up and I go out into my territory, into my sales world, I carry this mentality and this air about me that I'm not here to get, I'm not here to persuade, convince, talk into, anything like that. I'm here to sort. To move people from one bucket to another. And I like the idea of that. You've got people who have pain, are ready to spend money. They need your help. There's a connection that fits. You have some people that are obviously not. You have a lot in the middle. I find the best salespeople manage the middle the best. They're the ones that can quickly say, I'm going to push you aside, even though there's some tendencies, buying signals, as we say. They still know there's not enough there. They're either at the wrong level, they're not engaged, or they're not getting feedbacks. Something's not going right.
So it's easy to recognize the D prospects who are never going to buy. It's easy to recognize the A's, but it's the B's and C's in the middle that you can sometimes spend a lot of time with an imposter when really, if you sort it out better, you'd only spend the time with the B's.
No doubt. And we talked about, again, I keep coming back to these. This is interesting because these were both on my training call this morning.
Sure they were.
Sure.
They will be this afternoon, though, won't they?
No doubt. We'll see if my friends who I train will send you an email and tell you that, he was telling the truth. No, which is we get into this circular funnel idea where we have this certain, 20 to 25 prospects that we think are all really good, high probability prospects, and we work them and we work them and we work them. And then a large majority of them don't work out, and then we're back to nothing, and we have to refill. Where I think the best salespeople quickly move things in and out of that middle of that kind of that orbit,
orbit. I've been waiting for that word all day.
Yeah. It's the word of the day. Ding. Yeah. Did you ever watch Pee-wee's Playhouse?
Probably didn't. Oh, yeah.
Remember that? The word of the day when everyone would freak out and scream. Orbit. Orbit. There you go.
Pee-wee. Probably not a good role model anymore, but he is coming back. Paul Rubin. Okay. If you have a question, email us at listener@advancedsellingpodcast, or I think you can still go to askbillandbryan.com, and that takes you to the website, and there's a form there that you can fill out. So make sure you ask us a question. We've been getting a lot of LinkedIn requests. If you do make a LinkedIn request, make sure you reference the podcast, because I get a lot of LinkedIn requests that I don't accept if they don't have podcasts in them.
From attractive females, of course.
Attractive females are predominantly the constituent that I sort. I'm always sorting through those.
I'll tell Jane.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.